Morning. Good morning. The sun has got his hat on. Let's wait for a few of you lovelies to pop in. We're going to be talking about plague pits. We're going to be talking about the bubonic plague this morning. We're going to be talking about infrastructure, logistics. We're going to be talking about all that stuff. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Let's wait for a few to come in. I'm going to share this out. Good happy bank holidays Mondays to you all. Lovely to see it. The sea are nice. I'm not expecting too many in this morning. They're probably all just chilling out in bed. It is 10 to 10 on bank holiday Monday. So lovely to see you all. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be talking about lots of stuff here this morning. I'm just going to share this out on my various other platforms. Hopefully we get a nice little feed this morning. With not too many little interruptions there. It'll be very nice, very nice. So let's just whack this out. We're going to be talking about plague pits this morning. Yes. Oh, yes. We're going to be going to my favourite source, Wikipedia, patriots at home. Listen, there's a fantastic saying, right? And someone put this up this morning, and I thought it touched me, man. I mean, it really did touch me. It said that this country was built by the brave and not the fearful, and it was. It's so true. This country was built by brave people, daring people that did daring things, that pushed the boundaries, that despite all still got through and did what they had to do. And that's the kind of mentality, guys and girls, that we have to get nowadays. We have to get back to that. You know, everyone's so fearful. Oh, I'm going to wear my gloves and wear my mask. I'm like, but Jesus, what are you playing at? So that's a great analogy, that this country was built by the brave and not the fearful. It's so true. UK media, good morning, UK media. Very nice to see you, darling. Nice to see you. Thank you. Shirley Farrell, as always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for spending some time with me this morning on your very important day off. You got a day off today, people. Yeah, you got a day off today. The UK government has given you a bank holiday. The bankers give you a holiday. Aren't they lovely, the bankers, aren't they? Beautiful people, the British banking elite, the banking establishment. Yes, beautiful people. Actually, they're quite devilish, really. The banking system is the pit. It is the cause of all these problems. It is the cause of why the police do what they do. It's why the courts do what they do. It's the banks. And when you get your head around the fact that it is the bankers, people, it is the bankers and nobody else. Good morning, all. Apparently it's a holiday. Yeah, exactly, Adam. That's exactly what I was thinking. So, Mummy said, it's bank holiday. I went, every day's a bank holiday. Every day's a bank holiday, it is. So remember, people, this country was built by the brave, not the fearful. All right. So, we have to pay homage to the fearful, walking around in their masks and their gloves, for they don't know what they do and they don't know any better. They believe that a little virus is going to pay. Oh no, I'm not touching that one over there. No, look, it's got gloves on, it's got mask on. No, ain't happening. Oh, by the way, I'm going out playing golf with my midget friend later. He's brought his set of clubs around early, and we're going to go out and play a few holes later today. Beautiful. Can't wait to see me midget. Yeah, trouble is he can play golf, but he can't go any rides down at Ben Bombs. Unbelievable. The bankers are the one. Yeah, they are, Jace. I almost said it. I almost said it. You almost caught me out there. Yeah, no, he's only 3 foot tall. Ronnie Corbett. Ronnie Corbett's coming to play golf. He's just dropped his clubs off, so we're smashing it about a bit later on today. So we're going to be talking in a little while, ladies and gentlemen, about plague pits and the plague in general, which was back in the 1600s. And then we're going to be having a little look at the Coronavirus Act of 2020, which is a rather devilish, cunning plan by the government to take us all to wherever they want to take us. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that sort of stuff. I'm just waiting for a few more. What have I gone on now? I don't really need to go on now. Oh, by the way, now whether you follow this Q plan or you don't follow Q, if you don't know what Q is, QAnon, this, that, the other. If you go back a few months ago, well, just after Christmas, probably January times, and Donald Trump, President Donald. Oh man, I think I might have to play the American national anthem. I think I might have to. But is it going to affect my bandwidth? I just might do one of these to Donald Trump, because that's the way the Americans thing it, and that's the way the Brits do their stuff. We do that, they do that, we do this. I think that's how you can tell them out in the old battlefield. Yeah, because the Germans used to do that, the Brits did, the Americans did that, and so I think that's how you told them when they was out in the battlefield, when they was all dressed in camouflage. You couldn't tell who was who, so it was a bat saluting, maybe. I'm not too sure. But Donald Trump, right, a few months ago, he come up with this China. Everyone took the mickey out of him the way he says China. He's taken some old stick, the old boy, God bless him, and he rides it all out. He rides the storm, doesn't he? Be like Kanye West at a concert. He just rides it. He's a player. He don't care. He actually, my horse is rolling in the sand right now and enjoying itself. That's what I do. I roll. I just roll in greatness. I roll in the fact that around me is snowflakery and all the other stuff, all the fear stuff going on, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm good. Yeah, we're all good. Yeah. The sun's still out. The water's still there. The air's still fairly clean. And we're all still breathing. So, and that's what I do every morning. I go, thank God I got through another night. Hallelujah. When you get past 50 people, you'll know what I'm talking about. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you really will. Let me just change my shades, and we're going to get some reading ones on, and then we're going to come and have a little chat. Actually, these might be a little bit too strong. I might go back to me one-arm bandits, all right? Lockdown fever. Lockdown. That's better. These ain't as strong as the other ones. So, right, we're going to look at logistics, right? Let's just look at... I haven't finished what I was saying about Trump, have I? Let's just sort that one out. So, when Trump got wind of all this virus with China, this, that, the other, all the stuff with Huawei and 5G, he's knocked all that on the head, right? Now, we know that Huawei have been having some massive connections with the UK with the rollout of this 5G network. Now, the 5G network for me, vibrating at 64 gigahertz, I think is quite dangerous. I have been hearing stories, whether this is true or not, that actually on very warm, humid days, these 5G cell towers have been catching fire. They've been internally combusting because of the way that the 64 gigahertz vibrates. Now, sound and frequency, I'll give you an example. Just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not having an effect on you. And I'll give you this exactly straight away. My old father-in-law passed away in 1990. He had a bad cancer. His name was Jim Smith, and he was a beautiful, beautiful man. He was lovely. He only got into 56, 57, and he passed away. His leg snapped, his femur broke. He was in a bad way. And 2 days before he passed away, he said to me, he said, because he had a bad car crash in the 70s, he said to me, because he went to heaven, and every Sunday he would sit there. He was a businessman. He used to do all neon signs and stuff. He was wealthy, and you wouldn't know it. He was very humble. He always used to play a song called "One Day at a Time, Sweet Jesus," right? Because in 72 he should have died. How he got through the accident, no one knows, but he did. So he didn't have very good health. He had a bad car crash in 1972. He was in intensive care for ages. He come out of his body. He was looking down himself, being operated on. He went and saw his mum and dad that had already passed over. But the point I'm getting to, in the probably 1987, he had some stones, kidney stones. And when I used to hear him go for a pee, everyone does it. I'm going to talk about normal bodily functions in here. Why not? This is real TV. And he would, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ah, ooh. And all of a sudden, he'd be ding, and this little stone would fly out. And sometimes used to catch them in a pair of stockings and stuff. You know, kidney stones, calcium, really bad for you. The kidney stones are terrible. A mate of mine at golf years ago, we was out on the golf course in, I think it was Portugal, called Troia the Destroyer. This golf course was called Troia. And my mate was peeing up the tree and he was crying. You could see the tears rolling down his face, and the noises, you can see his little legs trembling where he's trying to pass his stone, right? And many of you out there are going to have that. I shouldn't be laughing. It's not funny. Why am I laughing? Why am I laughing, Dave? You're wicked. So anyway, the sound and frequency thing with to do with 5G. My father-in-law at the time, back in probably 86, 87, a few years before he passed away, sadly, he had these kidney stones, and they did a thing called bombardment on them. So what they did, they laid him in a bath of gel, and they got these two lasers, which is light and sound frequency, and where they crossed them and they passed through his body, they vibrated. And they vibrated these kidney stones without any intrusive surgery. So that was back then they was using it. Lord knows what they're doing now. So the point I'm trying to say, and the point I'm trying to get across, is just because you can't see it or feel it, and he never felt a thing when this thing was going on. He never felt a thing. When he got out of the bath, he went, did it work? He said, I didn't feel nothing. And I went, yeah, you'll be passing them stones, don't worry. So that's the point I'm trying to make about 5G. I don't know why I just went off a tangent then, but just because you can't see it and can't feel it doesn't mean to say it's not there. Excuse me, hay fever season. And it doesn't mean that it's not affecting you, right? So Trump put the bosh on China and Huawei. Whether they're rolling their 5G out, I think they are. There's people saying that he's been putting devices in that basically pull that 5G energy towards them so that it doesn't harm people. Well, Boris Johnson's just announced this morning or yesterday, and it's been reported on by the Daily Express, that China will have no dealings in the rollout of 5G in this country, right? He's getting rid of that relationship between China and England over Huawei and all that about this 5G. But the thing that he's doing that is I actually think that Trump has basically told Boris, right? Because I know that our prime ministers will always bend over and take one for an American president. It's just the nature of the beast. There's 330 million American people, right? And there's only 65, 70, well, with all the immigrants now, bless them, probably about 200 million in this country, because we've got dingies coming in every day. And I truly believe these people are coming for war, they're not coming for peace. But anyway, that's another story for another day. So the point I'm trying to get to is that Boris, I actually think there's a strong correlation with Trump, and because America always sets the tone, we always seem to follow. We seem to be the lackeys, the children in the room. And now that Boris has said, no more Huawei, China not rolling out 5G, I personally think that's got a lot to do with what Trump's doing. Everything's starting to feel like a distraction because they know we're coming. We should be coming. Listen, like I said at the beginning of this video, this country was built by the brave and not the fearful. I do not live in fear. Even when a copper's grilling me, I will not live in fear. I will swear a bitch at that boy. Let me tell you, if he's twisting me up, I lose the plot, and they probably would have to sedate me or kill me, because I go like a Tasmanian devil. I do, because freedom to me is more than a 7-letter word, and my soul can't handle that kind of oppression. And I mean, it really can't handle that kind of oppression. And what the police and that are doing nowadays is just sick and disgusting. So anyway, we'll move on to the topic of the day, right? I'm glad that we've got 23 people in the room. Thanks for joining me this morning. We're going to catch up with a few comments in a minute. Good morning, Dave. Great to see so many lives on your channel growing. It is Umbrella Solutions, Kaylee. It is growing rapidly now, and I'm loving it. It's fantastic, right? So we're going to be doing some facts here this morning, all right? So you've got this corona, pandemic, scamdemic, whatever it is you want to call it. We've got people out there that believe that it's happening. We've got people out there that call it baloney. Personally, I'll go by facts. And the facts are, and I try and deal with facts all the time, right? Because when we chat about this and that, we're not too sure. All the stuff that I talk about with regards to the birth certificate and claiming your trust and all that is verifiable. You can go and verify the facts and find it to be true, all right? Now, the facts are that in the village that I live in, which is beautifully peaceful, do you know, we've had one stabbing in 30 years in this village, and that was to do with a love thing going on, I don't know, between a bloke and a woman and someone else in the village, I guess a bit medieval. And that's it. Nothing, we don't get nothing like that going down here. It's beautiful. My village is beautiful. And we've got an adjoining village, which is just over the railway line, the other side. Now, between the two of us, we've got approximately 14,000 souls, right? that live here. Elderly, the young, the kids, you know what I'm like. Souls are souls, right? I don't care if it's an old boy, young boy, it's all important. We're all souls. We're just here having a nice time. Well, we've lost one individual, an old boy, allegedly died of COVID-19. And that, people, is not an epidemic. It's not a pandemic. That's a scamdemic, because I've said time and time again, we would have lost half the village already. The place would stink. There'd be bodies everywhere, because we don't have the infrastructure to cope with that kind of a thing. Now, I'm going to be getting into the Great Plague, right, which lasted in England. I'm going to be giving you some historic facts from Wikipedia, however it is you want to say it. Everything starts to feel distraction because they know we're coming. Jason Wills, yes, they do. I do believe. Joe Mulholland, good morning. Hello, sweetheart. Little English Rose there. Beautiful. The Webster Report, gorgeous, man. It's happening on loads of YouTube channels I'm to subscribe to. Fantastic, Paul. Lovely to see you. UK media, government is the plague. I will fully concur with that. I am not arguing with that. Look, the system's perfect. It is a finely tuned thing. The problem is it's being run by cretins. It's being run by Satanists. It's being run by really nasty, evil people. Because for the police to be doing what they're doing to everybody, they must be getting their orders and directives and permissions from their hierarchy. So their bosses, their so-called governors, oh, my governor said, yeah, go see the gov. Oh, I'll go and see the gov. Gov says we can club them to death. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, let's get out there. Come on. The Great Plague lasted from 1665 to 1666. Oh, let me tell you. With the last major epidemic of the bubonic plague to occur in England, it happened within the centuries-long second pandemic, a period of intermittent bubonic plague epidemic, which originated in Central Asia in 1331, the first year of the Black Death, an outbreak which included other forms such as the pneumonic plague, and that lasted until 1750. Right, the Great Plague killed an estimated 100,000 people, almost a quarter of London's population. Right, bearing in mind it's a long time ago, and it done it in 18 months. Right, so we're going from a time period of 18 months, which is a year and a half. Right, it's a year and a half. And in that time in London, remember the population in London was low then compared to today. I mean, geez. So they'd lost 100,000 people, right? They lost 100,000 people, almost a quarter of London's population. The plague was caused by a Yersinia pestis bacterium, which is usually transmitted by the bite of an infected flea of a rat. So it was a flea that come off of a rat. Now, back then in them days in London, people used to throw all their fecal matter out the windows. That's why old buildings had underpasses. You walked under, if you was brave enough to walk out in the middle channel where all the crap was, you was going to get covered in all sorts of stuff, properly covered in Richard III's, right? And they used to walk around with masks on their noses. We'll get to that in a second because the stench was so bad. And they used to have city rakers that would rake this stuff. They'd take it out past the city wall because the city used to have all gates, old gate, this gate, blah, blah. We'll get into that in a second, right? So to try and take the smell away, but it never really did much. And it just used to decompose and rot away back then. So the plague was caused by an infected, the flea off a rat, right? Morning, Dave. Sid James and the Carry On Gang. We'll have a laugh teaching the people. Wake up, me lovelies. Cheers. Absolutely right, Sid James. Yeah. I used to love Sid James. Let me tell you, one of my most favourite actors many moons ago. Right, so 1665, 66 epidemic was on a far smaller scale than in the earlier Black Death pandemic. It was remembered afterwards as the Great Plague. I don't know what could be great about it, but apparently it was the Great Plague, mainly because it was the last widespread outbreak of bubonic plague in England in Iran during the 400-year second pandemic. So, we're in London, 1665, as in other European cities of the period, the plague was an epidemic in the 17th century. The disease periodically erupted into massive epidemics. There were 30,000 deaths due to the plague in 1603, 35,000 in 1625, and 10,000 in 1636, as well as a small number in the other years. In late 1664, a bright comet was to be seen in the sky, and the people of London were fearful, wondering what evil event it portended. London at the time consisted of a city of, can you imagine them seeing a little comet come flying over? But, oh, the world's going to, you've had them guys out with the boards, the world's going to end, we're all doomed. So, right, you had city gates. You had Ludgate, Newgate, Oldgate, Cripplegate, Moorgate, Bishopsgate, and to the south lay the River Thames, London Bridge. In the poorest part of the city, hygiene was impossible to maintain in overcrowded tenements and garrets. So we used to live in tenements, right? And garrets. That's what these places were called. There was no sanitations and the drains were open flowing. The city corporation employed rakers to remove the worst of the filth, and it was transported to mounds outside the city where it accumulated, pretty much where we probably put all the politicians nowadays, to allow it to decompose. And that's a shame they ain't decomposing. The stench was, and I meant that, the stench was overwhelming and people walked around with handkerchiefs or nosegays. Oh, I've got a nosegay on, darling. Check out my nosegay. Yes, I've got my finest Julian Clary. You quite love it. Pressed against their nostrils. Oh, you stink. Some of the city's necessities, such as coal arriving by barge, mainly came by road, carts, carriage horses, pedestrians were crowded together, and the gateways in the walls formed bottlenecks through which was difficult to progress. Right. So we see what happened and the amount of people that have died during this bubonic plague, right? The plague in 1665, and we all know what come in 1666. What come in 1666, people? Yeah, you know, the SKV Trust, which means he who lives. That's what the SKV means, SKV, because the reason why they do these enactments in French is because of William the Conqueror. When he come and conquered and got his gonads out on the beach down at Hastings and kicked Harold in the bits, Harold was fighting a war on another front as well, and he was tired. And he come down with his men. It took them ages to get down, and they needed a pizza hut and a McDonald's. They couldn't get them. None was open, and they went flying down there. And William the Conqueror just got off his thingies and thought, right, I'm having this. And Harold lost the battle. So we had the French rule for about 200 years, and we used to speak French. Apparently, French was the common language of this land. God forbid, no? So yeah, that's what happened. We love the French, by the way. Before they start sending any flares over, you know what the French are like. They get fired up so quickly. My God, do they get fired up? What does this do mean? No? I love the French. I do. I love them. Love their cuisine. Love their golf courses. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Right. So all these acts of parliaments go through in French, and when they answer whether they're going to enact a new act, which is just putting their hands in your pocket, they answer yes or no to whether this enactment is going to go through in a bill, and bills have to be paid. They say yes or no in French. And sometimes when they're not happy and they want to swear, they go merde, 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 which in French means shit. So right, we've got the Great Plague. We've done the Great Plague, Black Death, whatever you want to call it, the bubonic plague. Killed a lot of people. It was quite nasty at the time. So now we're going to talk about a plague pit, right? Now I want to ask you something serious here, right? I'm just a man. Morning, sunshine. Hello, gorgeous. Lovely to see you. I want to ask you a question. If there was a real serious pandemic, scamdemic, would we have the infrastructure to deal with it? Would we have enough funeral directors to take the bodies, put them in funerals, blah, 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 go up and smoke, go in the ground? Do you think that would be the case? Do you think there's enough infrastructure? Or do you think that a plague pit would have to be dug? I actually believe that if you had bodies dropping everywhere, and I mean everywhere, and it was well established that this bubonic plague was in town and it was nasty, all you did was when your dead died, that don't even make sense, they would go on a cart and they would go to a burial pit, right? Yeah? We're given that. We're doing the history right now. History is not a liar. History is recorded after the event, right? So, a plague pit is the informal term used to refer to a mass grave, right, in which victims of the Black Death were buried. The term is most often used to describe pits located on Great Britain, but can be applied to a place where bubonic plague victims were buried. The plague has swept across China, Middle East, Europe in the 14th century and estimated to have killed between 1/3 to 2/3 of Europe's population. Let that just sink in. The plague killed 1/3 to 2/3 of the population of Europe. Are you seeing that? This is a pandemic. This is whoa, we've got an epidemic, pandemic. People are dying everywhere. Have you seen a third of your people of your country disappear? Have you seen dead bodies laying in the roads? Have you seen people throwing out dead bodies screaming and crying? Don't think you have you? Disposal of the bodies of those who died presented huge problems for the authorities. The authorities. And eventually the normal patterns of burial and funeral observance broke down. Right. So what we're saying here is, I've got itchy eyes. It's hay fever season, isn't it? Disposal of the bodies of those who died presented huge problems for the authorities. And eventually the normal patterns of burial and funerary observance broke down. Plague pits were used especially often during major plague outbreaks such as the London epidemic of 1665. During these times, graveyards rapidly filled, right? And such graves became, we weren't burning people back then, apart from at the stake, unless you was a witch. If you was a witch like me, witcher, you kidding me? Ooh, I'd have been gone, especially with my views on life. I'd have been burnt at the stake years ago. So, plague pits were used especially, and during these times, graveyards filled rapidly. Rapido. And such graves became available only to wealthy people, someone like myself. Parishes became strained. One example, the record of St. Bride's Church of Fleet Street during the Great Fire, 1665, showed typically methods employed by the parishes. In 1665, the total numbers of deaths in the parish rose to 5.5 times their normal numbers, with 2,111 deaths overall and 1,427 attributed to the plague. Some scientists have put forward the idea that the Black Death was not caused by Yersinia pestis, whatever it is, Yersinia pestis, as some have thought, and some evidence of this has been in plague pits, where the pathogens of other diseases such as anthrax have been discovered. See theories of the Black Death. However, the screening of over 100 skeletal remains from Black Death victims buried in London East Smithfield pit points to Yersinia pestis as the cause, which is the fleas off of rats. And this is generally why we don't like rats. But rats are quite a nice little creature, really. Bring out your dead. Absolutely right. So I'm going to come on to this Corona Act of 2020, which swiftly went through. I mean, this thing went through quicker than Jimmy Savile for a 4-year-old, let me tell you. I just said that. I did. I don't care. I don't care. Meaning of coronavirus and related terminology. Emergency restriction of health professionals. Emergency registration of health professionals. You can't register them. All that dancing and doing their fantastic dances on TikTok. They ain't got time to do a registration. Come on. Emergency registration nurses and other health and care professionals. Emergency arrangements concerning medical practitioners. Emergency registration of social workers. Crikey, seems they can't get enough of them. Emergency volunteering leave, compensation for emergency volunteers, indemnity for health service activity, England, Wales, blah, blah, blah. Extension time limits of retention of fingerprints and DNA profiles. Mate, I tell you what, this country operates on like, why? Why do they want all these fingerprints and all this DNA and this is the thing, right? This country's always been run on this premise of, well, it's to keep you safe. It's to keep you. So if your daughter gets murdered, we can find the killer far easier. And it's always been sold. We've always been sold all these cameras in the high street. Oh, it's for your benefit. It's for your protection. Oh, right. Sweet. Fantastic. By the way, none of this is for our protection. None of it at all. This is a modern day Gestapo Fourth Reich program. It's a eugenics program. Review of causes of death certificates and cremations. Now, I'm going to have a little dig into this one. We're going to have a little dig into the Coronavirus Act of 2020. Part 1 of Schedule 14 containing temporary modifications of legislating relating to the review of medical certificates of causing of death in Scotland. So if you go, let's say if you had a plan for being buried and you die of coronavirus, then let's have a look at the next provision. I guess that's not really going to happen, and they're probably going to be buried a Muslim or something like that, and it's your faith within 24 hours, blah blah blah. See, that's how powerful faith and religion is. That when someone of the Muslim faith passes away, they have to be buried within 24 hours, and they are, because there would be a proper outcry otherwise. So that just tells me how powerful this is. Some of my relatives have sat around in funeral dates for 2 weeks. Obviously not talking to anyone because their time has passed. But I'm just thinking, if you're cremating all these bodies that have passed away from coronavirus, scamdemic, pandemic, whatever it is, there's no evidence. You're certainly not going to get it from a pile of ash. Hasn't the corona bill thing been classed as null and void? I'm not too sure. That I have seen that post put out, Merv. I really, really do. Vaccinations and immunisations. Oh, this is relating to Scotland. Let's see what it says. The Scottish ministers may make arrangements or immunisation of persons against any disease and any medical practitioners that were submitted persons in. Power the Scottish Minister and the Secretary to make arrangements of the vaccinations or immunisation of persons against any disease. It's not saying here that it's mandatory, and I actually think that that's a massive stumbling block for any government. Is mandatory, all right? Because mandatory means, let's have a look at the word mandatory in my old dictionary whilst I'm chatting to you lot. Let's see what the word mandatory meant. Actually, even if it is still in here, it might not even be in it. A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R. Let's have a look. Hang on. Let's see if I can find the word mandatory. Let's see if we can find it and shed some light on the word mandatory, because what we have to pay attention to is all the words, ladies and gentlemen. LMN, let's have a look. Mandatory, misinformation. Oh, that's a big one, isn't it? Misinformation. It's all advisory, Dave. Yes, it can only be that. It can only be that. I know people that don't vaccinate their children. I know people that don't send their children to school. God bless them for it, because they see the light. They know that something's gone wrong. It's the only reason people would pull their children out of school and stop vaccinating is because they've lost their faith in the ones that are supposed to be righteous. Government only hold that position because they're supposed to be righteous people. And when you look at how they've got their police out now beating Liam up like they did the other day for having a little gathering in his back garden, you'll clearly see that they have no malevolence or righteousness about them anymore. Mandate. So let's have a look at the word mandate first. A charge, an authoritative command, a rescript of the Pope, a delegation of power or government over any area to an outside government by the League of Nations. Mandatory, containing a mandate or command, preceptive, directory, right? Mandible means the lower jaw. That's the mandible. We got the mandible in there. So mandatory goes with mandate, and it means it's a directive of the Pope. Wow, this is a very old book. So now we know what mandatory and mandate means. It's a command or a rescript of the Pope. So when something becomes mandatory, it's a rescript of His Holiness Pope Francis himself. I never knew that. So that's the word mandatory out of this very old dictionary. So yeah, mandatory. That's what mandatory means. So it must be a rescript of the Pope saying, "Get out and inject every one of them suckers." And I don't like that. This Coronavirus Act is quite dangerous, quite damning, if you ask me. Well, all of their stuff is, and it's all about supposition. Let's see what it says about registration of deaths and stillbirths. Remember, you come into the world of stillbirth, right? So when they put the registration of deaths and stillbirths, it's one and the same thing. I want you to understand the language that they're using, right? So it's saying there contains temporary modifications of legislation relating to the registration of deaths and stillbirths in England, Wales and Scotland and related provisions. So what that's saying is they're twisting the norm slightly because of this coronavirus pandemic, which ain't happening. It's not happening, people. Sorry, it's not. That's my own opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. I think it's a massive con. Joy Mo Hullen says, I'm going up crematorium every day next week, as by rights, we should be overloaded with funerals. Absolutely. So I'll be checking the funeral list every week, 7. Last week, 7 only. Absolutely. 7. Oh, it's terrible, this pandemic, isn't it? I watched a video the other day of a woman was saying that her dad had Alzheimer's. He was diagnosed many years ago. And by grace and good food and nutrition, they'd nursed him for just over 10 years when he finally turned his toes up and departed and left his vessel and went back to spirit. And the doctors tried writing the report up as COVID-19. And they went mental. They went, well, hang on a minute. You've been treating him for Alzheimer's and we've been helping him for the last 10 years. All of a sudden, he's died of Verona. I don't think so. And that's that. So they pulled the doctor on that and they got the death properly diagnosed as Alzheimer's, right? Alzheimer's is when you lose your marbles. And they said they had a friend also, their dad passed away about a month prior and had heart issues and all sorts of heart complications for years and was on heart medication and passed away of a heart attack or whether it was heart failure. And guess what? Lo and behold, he was being labelled up as a COVID-19. And again, they had to jump on board and say, well, no. Now, the Bible's very explicit on you shan't bear false witness. And that is purely testifying and bearing false witness, right? When an individual dies of a thing and you label that thing as something else, then you are fudge packing the results. You are inflating the figures. Why? To keep people in fear. Now, remember I said that this country was built by the brave. It wasn't built by the fearful. If this country had been left to grow by the fearful, we would never be where we are today. And we are a great country and we are a great people. However, we have been subverted and we're continually being subverted every single day. Joe Mulholland says, vaccines caused my body to attack itself as a child, ended up with rheumatoid arthritis, age 9. Oh, bless your heart. So sad. A friend of mine, her daughter was on the spectrum, and is, with autism or whatever it is that we get, and she got 2 boys, and she noticed that they were going the same way. So what she decided to do, and this is a true story, she put her boys in baths with Epsom salts, a very strong dose of Epsom salts, and all of a sudden they'd been in there a few minutes and they started screaming. And she looked down and she started seeing these little blood spots pop up on their bodies. And she's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And what it was doing, the heavy metals from these vaccines were leaching through the kids' skin and coming into the bathwater. Because that's what Epsom salts does. It pulls toxins out of your body, right? Salt's fantastic for you, by the way. Not table salt, that white salt, that is a killer. But pink salt and Himalayan salt and sea salt, Celtic sea salt. So I'm telling you, that's why people go to the Dead Sea and then they just heal themselves. They got a cut or something, it's gone within no time. And when she emptied the bathwater, when the kids had got out, she ran around across the bottom of it, cleaning it up, and she felt all these metal filings coming out. And luckily, the kids are not vax damaged. When I was a child, you never heard of autism. You never heard of all these things on the spectrum. And the kids now, they're suffering like with all the things that they're getting. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon to work out and put 2 and 2 together and see the facts and work out that it is vaccinations, right? These kids now, they have so many vaccinations placed in their body. And don't get me wrong, there are certain things that you don't want. I mean, when I was 4, I didn't know what was going on. I had a TB jab. I might even been slightly younger. And I think I took a sugar thing for polio or whatever. But that's about it. I had a vaccine to go to Africa, about 10 years ago. Maybe slightly longer than that now, actually, thinking about it. I was only 40. Yeah, it's about 10 years ago. 41, I think, about 10, 11 years ago. And that made me go weird. But never again, I'm never going to a country where I have to have big vaccines. And that's another thing as well. You know, you can't go to these countries unless you have these vaccines. Well, that's slavery. We have the absolute right to leave our country and come back to our country. That's a God-given right. And that is also bolstered by the Universal Declaration of Rights, Article 13, which says any man or woman can leave their country of birth for duration and then come back without being any hindrance. And that's exactly where we should be. So, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, go and check out coronavirus, the bill, the Act of 2020. The police are massively abusing their powers right now, as witnessed in Liam's back garden, where this couple was trying to climb over his fence. He knew he was on a sticky wicket to do so, and then drew him out the front with nice words like, mate, come out for a chat. And I think Liam now would realise that mate thing was a bait. And Liam finally, when he did come out and quiz the police on their fudging powers, they give him a huge kick in and took him down the station in the back of the van, where he's rolling all around the back of the van in cuffs with his chins hitting the walls and on the floor, cut him up senseless. And they're all laughing at him and calling him a CUNT. And they lovely. They fill my body with their metals now. They treat RA with chemo drugs. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that I can get through the rest of my life without taking any of these drugs. I use supplements and vitamins and minerals, and I keep myself fairly fit and healthy. And I cycle a lot and use my gyms and gym bits and bobs to try to do that, because, you know, as we get older, things start aching a little bit. So look, guys, you know, I'm not going to keep up too much more of your gorgeous bank holiday Mondays. I don't know where you're all going today. Enjoy your day off, people, and put it alongside tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, because you're not allowed out of your house, you naughty people. You're on lockup. And remember, this country was built by the brave, not the fearful, okay? We've discussed plague pits this morning. Does anybody out there have a plague pit or a burial pit near them? Do you have people and funeral motors screeching up, reversing up, and throwing bodies in pits, open pits, where you could walk up alongside it and go, oh, blimey, and see bodies with legs and arms. I know I'm graphic, but this isn't for kids, and this is how it is. Are you seeing that? Are your neighbours telling you, here, there's a burial pit up the road where they're throwing all the bodies from this corona verona? Where do they put the 30,000 a year that die from the flu virus? Please tell me. They go to funeral directors, right? And they go to cremation or burials, right? Yeah, mostly go to cremation. I don't really fancy cremation because I want my body to be whole for resurrection. So I would rather go and be buried, I do believe. But Jesus said, you know, what is of the spirit is of the spirit, and what is of the flesh is of the flesh. It's two different things. He said, and let the dead bury the dead. That was his words. So we've done plague pits. We've done what the plague was. We've done the amount of people that it killed. It killed over a third of the people of London. It killed over a third of them, right? We're not seeing that. All we're seeing is dodgy politicians keeping this country in fear, and everyone's buying the narrative. And it's sad to witness, because our ancestors would have just laughed at them. And I mean, they would have laughed at them. They would have gone, oh, shut up, you melons. They would have, because they had this gusto about them. They had this Jack Churchill spirit. Yeah, Captain Jack Churchill. That's what people were like back then. No, don't worry, old boy. It's just a flesh wound. I'll carry on. Watch me regardless. And the man's legs hanging off. Come back and fight. Yeah, I've cut your arm off. No, I haven't. I've not lost my arm. That's the sort of mentality we used to have, ladies and gentlemen. Right? Now it's, oh, there's a virus out. I'm so scared. There's my mask. Where's my gloves? Walking around like Michael Jackson doing Billie Jean. Do you know what I mean? It's not happening. And these things are not going to protect you. Not in any way, shape or form. And if you're delusional enough to think that they are, you've lost the crack. You've lost your marbles. There is no way on earth. I've rubbed many a wall down in my time, drywall boarding, right? Easy feel, tape and jointing. I've done that. I built a big, I renovated a big 4-bed house about 15 years ago, maybe slightly less, in Maidstone. Massive house it was. And I put all new ceilings up, and I sorted all the walls out. I must have gone through bag and bag and bag and bag and bag of easy feel. And I would buy masks. I would buy the ones with the respirators on. I would buy the ones that go over your face. And at the end of every interval, when I used to go and wipe the dust out my eyes, right, because I don't live in fear. I don't care. Stick me in that room with all that dust. I'm living the dream. I'm bathing in it. It's like Brute 33 to me, right? When my time's up, I'm going to go. And I used to take these masks off that I'd had on my face, and they'd all build up in the air. In here would build the little dust particles, and all around here would be the dust particles. So don't. I'm a man that's worn many masks, and I wear one every day when I talk to you. You just can't see it. I mean, I'm not ugly. That's what happens. I have to wear a mask in case of fear of scaring you all. But in all the time, a little bit of light rubbing, take the mask off. You've always got these dust particles here, because they don't. And these, even the ones with the respirators on, you still get dust go through them, people. And if you think you're going to get a little tiny bacteria, virus, bug thing, think, oh, I can't go near him. He's got a mask on. Oh, he's too tasty for me. He's well foiled me out. Oh, he's got a hazmat suit on. There was a geezer that went to Lidl's in Audi. Someone took a picture and sent it to me, right? Right? This geezer's got a hazmat suit on. He's got all that. He looked like he was going in to identify a dead body. He looked like he was with forensics from this Gestapo Nazi Kent police regime that we have. And it is a regime, and it is a Nazi-style Gestapo thing. This government is, and Kent police are a Gestapo-loving organisation. And yes, they put all these banners out, serving and protecting the people of Kent, but it is the inverted truth. Inverted truth. They're stealing, robbing and maiming you. They're not there to protect you. They're there to make money. Crime is their business. They registered on Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet. They're a business. Kent police are a business. They make money. They're not at the common law. IBM Computers owns Devon and Dorset Constabulary. They're for profit, people. They're for profit. You can go and check these out things yourself. Just go on Dun and Bradstreet and type in Kent Police Force. You'll see who owns Kent Police Force. You'll see who owns Devon and Dorset Constabulary. It's a joke. It's far worse than any time period we've ever been in before. But people will get it at some point. They truthfully will. This is going to hit a lot of people like lumbago in the back. You're not going to be able to sit down without this touching you, let me tell you. And it's coming. Just to reiterate, during the epidemic of 1665, during this time, graveyards rapidly filled, and such graves become available only to wealthy people. Parishes become strained. One example recorded of St Bride's Church on Fleet Street showed typical methods of employment by the parishes. In 1665, the total number of deaths in the parish rose to 5.5 times their normal numbers, with 2,011 deaths overall and 1,427 attributed to the plague. Are you seeing? Funeral directors will be able to cope with this. There is not the infrastructure within funeral directors, right? Because they're all pretty much scattered around the place, and they deal with the consistent flow of normal death, the normal numbers of death. If we're seeing in a pandemic, right, 5.5 times the normal numbers, do you honestly believe that any funeral directors in this country is going to be able to deal with that? Or any crematoriums will be able? Them crematoriums are going 24/7, people. There's always, I went up to a funeral many years ago in Manchester way, Salford, ran. I'm trying to think of the area. It begins with a W. Perhaps some of you guys, Warrington. I went to Warrington. Someone and I went up there, and this massive crematorium with a road about 1,000 yards long. Them funeral spires and the smoke was going like Billy-O. And it was one in, one out, one in, one out, one out. So we're not going to cope with that, people. You're not going to cope with this. You're going to have burial pits. And there isn't one at the moment in this country. Google search right now before I disappear. Are there any burial pits in England? No, there's not. So it's a fraud, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? It's no worse than the common cold. People die of the common cold. People die of the flu. People die of pneumonia. Get over it. It happens. Be brave. Don't live in fear. I'll see you all very soon. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Enjoy the rest of your bank holidays. I will tune into you later tonight, and we will rip the knob off again, bringing some massive truth bombs to the people of this country and the people as well. You take care of yourselves.